So I will call the meeting to order. Tonight is February 20th. It is 6:11 PM and we will start the Charter Review Committee. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business, which does not require display, is approval of the minutes from our meeting on February 6th. You folks have them in your packet. Are there any additions, changes, deletions required in this set of minutes? Alan?
Just quickly on the minutes. I'm starting to have a little concern. How are the minutes developed? Is it off the videotape? Is it per the notes taken during the meeting?
Yeah, I'll let Michelle address that. Michelle, there's a question on how you process our meeting minutes. Could you chime in and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I do listen to the tape, Al. I listen to the recording on PAC TV.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you hear me? I listened to the recording.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Good, follow
No, that's fine. I just wanted to know what the process was. I'm questioning sometimes things that get in and don't get in.
up? Right.
And, I've been watching over several weeks, 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah,
And I just had a concern because, not that I say anything too witty, but there's a lack of sometimes a counter,
sure.
point counterpoint.
Yep.
And I just wanted to make sure going forward, if there's something we could do to make sure both sides of the discussion get in the record.
Yeah, I think if there's something that you notice that isn't part of this, then you can certainly ask for it to be in addition during this part of the
Yeah,
conversation.
they're fine. The minutes overall are fine. I
Yeah.
like the boxes, the vote
Yeah.
count. Not a question about it.
Yeah.
Some of the backup
Yeah.
has been concerned.
I will add to that, and our president and former town clerk can probably nod their heads in agreement that the minutes don't have to be a transcript of the meeting.
I understand.
And so, I wanna make sure that we're balancing, what we want to be in here versus what Michelle can reasonably accomplish. I will say that, Alan, in other meetings, I've asked for statements that I've made to be added to the record. So I think if it's important to you, we can get those into the minutes.
Yeah, like I said, at this point, there's nothing earth shattering that I would want in or out.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring it up as a something to keep my eye on.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Any other comments on the minutes? Anything needs to be added, deleted, amended? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Ms. Cavaco makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Mr. Lawler seconds the motion. I'll call the roll. I'm flying a little blind here because I don't have two screens right now. So give me just one quick second while I switch over to my vote tracker. I'll call based on who's in the room right now. I'll note at the top that Mr. Bulletin is acting as a full member tonight since Mr. Zuccaroli is not with us. So Mr. Bulletin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Votrain,
Yes.
Mr. Pizer,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Yes.
Mr. Costello,
Yes.
Ms. Cavaco,
Yes.
Mr. Levin,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
yes.
and I vote yes. The vote is unanimous. The minutes are approved. All right, excellent. Thank you, Tony. We don't need the pucks tonight because we're still using the owl for sound.
Okay.
So that is perfect. Very good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so we've gotten through our meeting minutes. Is there public comment? And we have two folks here from the public. Well, one member of the public and two members of our staff. Both staff members are here as guest speakers on our agenda. But for folks who are interested in giving a public comment, we usually allow public comment during that section of the agenda, but if there's relevant information during our discussion and it doesn't occur during a vote, we allow the public to comment, on items that are further down the agenda as well, so, would either of you folks like to give a public comment about items that we're gonna address later tonight?
Yeah, now again, very welcome.
Come on up, Barry.
I'm used to sitting next to you.
Dr. Kaufman is, our chair of the Board of Health. I'll give the floor to him now.
As some of you may remember, when the charter was last gone over, there was a change made to the way in which the Board of Health was organized. Originally, we had the Board of Health having 5 members, appointed for 3-year rotating sort of appointments. And one of those members, according to the charter at the time, said that it must be a physician if one is available. So since that time, we have had a physician on the Board of Health. And I believe she still intends to stay with the Board of Health until at least her current appointment expires. We also had another physician before that, who was on the Board of Health. So we found that was very valuable for us to have a physician on the Board of Health with us. The other thing that was different about the charter between what it was before and what it was going to be if it had been adopted last time was that the alternate that we were using was not in the new charter, that was not accepted by the vote at the election. We feel that having an alternate is very valuable. Usually one or more, usually 1 or 2, most often 1 members of the Board of Health cannot participate because of travel or other things. And the alternate can vote in the absence of a full member of the Board of Health. Otherwise, they do not vote. They can participate in discussions, but they only vote if a member of the full member of the board is absent. And I want to be here tonight to urge you to go along with the way it was organized originally, so that we would have a physician, if one is available, on the Board of Health. And so we would also have an alternate available to us, as I think many other boards and committees do as well. So I don't know why that changed last time when they did the new charter revision that wasn't accepted during the election. But we would have lost both, I believe. So I'm here tonight mostly to answer questions about.
I didn't hear what you said. You were something of a.
The Board of Health has 5 members, one of which, if one is available, is supposed to be a physician. Okay?
Yeah, got that part.
Okay. That was the way it was before they did the new reorganization of the charter. That version of the charter was apparently not voted in. So then we're still with the old version of the charter, as I understand. Right.
Can I jump in there? So, what Dr. Poppin is saying is that, when the Charter Commission
Yeah, they
proposed
proposed something.
a new, proposed the new charter at last May's election, it didn't, the section covering the Board of Health did not include an alternate, and it did not include the clause that said that the select board would endeavor to appoint a physician if one is available and willing to serve. So, Dr. Poffin's here to advocate for those 2 things to remain in the charter that we're reviewing here.
So
Which is-
the
which is
charter
the-
stays the same.
In regards to those 2 elements.
Yes.
yes.
Do we have any idea why they did that?
I wondered if it was a mistake that the alternate part was.
Yeah, I think, I don't wanna go too far. I think you're right, Martha. I don't wanna go too far
Okay, I
into.
didn't ask anybody this first.
Yeah. I think,
Should I ask
I think the Charter Commission was working from an older version of the Board of Health that didn't include those elements, which came through a different, charter review committee.
So to put it all together, you like what is in the present charter,
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
but you're not advocating to add anything?
no, we don't.
Don't subtract, don't add. Got it. Okay.
We are very happy and we're functioning very well as it is. We don't want to mess it up.
Fine.
It is the stipulation about the physician, meaning that the person was trained as a physician, meaning he doesn't have to be a practicing, that person doesn't have to be a practicing physician, but could be, and so at one time was a practicing physician.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't have to be an MD, it could be a DO, it could be a doctor of pediatric medicine. Anything that has doctor of something that's related to clinical medicine.
Yeah.
Is fine.
Veterinarian?
Could be a veterinarian too, we do occasionally, we do occasionally have things that involve animals. Yeah.
Just saying.
Just so folks know, typically during, public comment, I don't allow a back and forth between the presenter, but as Dr. Kaufman is the chair of our Board of Health, I think this is perfectly acceptable discourse.
And on the Board of Health, David functions as my, sort of authority when it comes to making sure that everything is done exactly according to the way it's supposed to be done. In case I'm in my haste, skip over something, David said, oh.
Are there any further questions for Dr. Kaufman? Thank you, Gary.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any public comment online? I see a couple of folks. Could you indicate your intention to talk either by turning your camera on or raising your virtual hand? All right, seeing and hearing no further public comment, I will move on to our discussion items. Our first guest speaker here tonight is Kelly McCullough, our town clerk. So Kelly, the floor is yours.
The floor is mine. Okay, I thought I was here to answer questions.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I've been a little.
So,
bit sorry.
Kelly's office is extraordinarily busy. As you folks may imagine, we have 5 elections this year.
Mhm.
I met with Kelly, last week, 2 weeks ago,
Mhm.
to talk about some of the modifications we made to her role in chapter 2.
Yep.
We also took a look ahead at the election section.
Yeah.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, the changes that we made were in line with your vision for your department.
Yeah, I think the only other comment that I would have is, where it states that the town clerk posts the warrant on the website. That, to me, that should be a constable and not the town clerk. I'm looking right at you, Larry, sorry. Where does that, maybe you can give me some history on that one?
The history is that it was a constable, and we removed it because the constable really it was ceremonial. I mean, the constable showed up in the clerk's office, signed his name, handed it back to the clerk's office, and the
Put on
clerk
the
did it.
website.
So this was just, the warrant has to be publicized, it's a warning. But the clerk's gonna do it anyway, why add additional pieces? And we did check with the state. And there's no requirement that a constable be involved.
Yeah, but I do know that they recommend that the town clerk does not post warrants. There's nothing that says that they can't, but I know Michelle, the elections division director, has said that they don't recommend it, so, and I would kind of look at it, yeah, I would have him go, the constable, I would have that person go with someone so we could open up the bulletin board and it gets posted. We will, of course, would have to handle the website, but then on the flip side, then they could go to the library, and we're not relying on the library director and to post it, because that's what happens now. So that's the only reason that I would recommend that we change that to be the constable. There's a little bit of a cost because we're asking someone to come in and do something, but I think it's ceremonial, but it also makes it more official, and then I'm not in the middle of it.
Do you know what the cost is?
We just recently appointed some new constables, and I don't know, but there's this one, I think,
Was it 2,500?
no, I just had, Paul Curtis post the AG changes, and I think he charged me $90. He had to go to 5 locations. So, and I don't know if I'd use Paul Curtis or there's just a new person, Heather, that was just posted, just appointed to. So I would get their fees and do it accordingly.
Kelly's way nicer than I am. I think that's a given. There was no charge for what the constable did.
Oh, okay.
But that was out of the goodness of the constable's
Right,
heart, and also it was a minimal responsibility. Back in the day when we posted warrants in every precinct, we used the police department. And while there was no tangible, there was no cost to the town on the books, using a policeman obviously the cost of the town. So, the answer is maybe there would be no cost, and maybe there would be a
Minimal
cost, yeah.
So no to minimal charge.
Yeah.
Did you have a follow-up, Alan?
No, I was gonna ask the very same question.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions for the clerk?
I just wonder what Michelle, elections division director has against clerks posting warrants.
I'm not sure of her actual reasoning, but I think it gets the clerks out of the responsibility of actually posting it and just making sure that it gets posted. I know I've heard her say, so Michelle Tessanari is actually Deputy Secretary of the Commonwealth, where she's elections, and she goes to a lot of conferences, and I've heard her in the classes that she recommends that the town clerk do not post the warrants, that it's posted by a constable.
What, you understand the legal precedence for that?
Again, it's nothing in Mass General law, it's just, you're putting the town clerk in a tricky situation if he or she says it's been posted and somebody finds an error that it wasn't posted. Again, it's not a big thing, I just think it's something that should be,
I see what you're saying.
that,
She's the critical path.
I'm gonna go Steve, Larry, do you have a follow-up, Joe?
Well, I had another class question for Kelly.
Okay, I'll come to you after that.
So quick question then, is there a way that we can do this that just sort of gives you the responsibility to decide how it gets done, period? And if you want to use a constable, that you use a constable?
sure, the language right now says the town clerk posts the warrants, well, if you,
We say shall arrange for the posting.
Doesn't it say shall cause?
I think it says.
Where exactly is it?
It's under the new section that.
Oh, it's not in the regular town yet.
No, it was
No,
part
it's
of
in that
the,
one too.
but we made some amendments and we've been around a little bit, so. I wanna see what he, actually recommended.
I'm putting a copy the same, I think 30 pages.
I'm pulling up
Okay.
the red line version of the charter,
The one we're working.
the one that we're currently working on this. Just for, while this is coming up, we do have a plan to return to chapter 2 at some point, Kelly, so.
Okay,
We could address that in that area.
yep,
And again, while this is coming up, Larry and Joe, I believe you had some follow-up questions.
I was wondering, this is a David question, if we might postpone the decision on this, and ask our town clerk to get in touch with, the election, well, in specifically with, Ms. Tassinari,
yeah,
so that we're not guessing.
yeah, I can make some inquiries on, but I just know that I was very surprised when I got here that it was my role to post, so that's why I was kind of like, ooh.
And in your previous communities, Kelly, had it been a constable?
Yep.
Different. Joe and then Betty?
Yeah, did you have, I have a different kind of question, so if you have a question related to this, you should.
Well, I think if we add the language that Steve said, then
Yeah,
it's,
so. I agree, but so what it says now is the town clerk shall serve as the clerk of representative town meeting. The town clerk shall cause notice of all town meetings to be posted in town hall, in the town's libraries, and posted on the town's website, and take reasonable efforts to post to social media, is the amended version of what we
I remember that.
discussed. Do you think that that does not do enough to give you
The authority to have
the
the
authority to have
constable?
a constable? I think it does.
Yeah.
You're causing it by getting a constable, yes?
I agree.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I just originally read it that it was, I continued to do it. Yeah, no,
Maybe-
I'm okay with that.
Maybe you and I should take this to Kate too.
I think she's gonna say the same thing that I did.
Okay.
I don't mind sending a quick email. I probably won't send the email to elections to the person I'm thinking of until after March fifth, but I'll send her a quick email.
Kind
And
of
yeah,
some big things going on.
yeah, a couple things going on, so. I will ask her that question.
Great.
Then I'm,
Follow up.
no, I'm satisfied.
Follow up. Jeff.
I wanted to ask a question about the status of the, reorganization, the E360. How's that going?
Yeah, it's taking longer than I anticipated. I think the bylaws, they're really going through them, so, last I heard it, I was hoping for May or June that they would give us something. So I know David and I talked at one point that once I get them, we need to develop a strategy, based on what they send to me.
Yeah,
I can tell you my previous community, and I think I even showed you an example of it. It says, okay, this line says A, B, C, D, based on mass general law and based on what you have in your charter or based on what you have in other bylaws, it should say E, F, and G. Do you want it to say A, B, C, D? Do you want it to say E, F, and G? Or do you want it to say something else? And then we make that decision. And I was really hoping to get like a subcommittee of this to go through it. And maybe do the presentation at one time. So again, and I said it at your very first meeting that I went to, I feel like we're both turning the wheels at the same time. And I think it's something that you guys are doing a very concerted effort, and it might be something that once you guys come up with your changes, they might be able to do a quick update. I don't know, at least when it comes to the charter, it's the bylaws that my concern is anything that they change in the charter that has significant changes to it, they then want to go back and look at the bylaws and make sure there's no conflicts in the bylaws.
Are they doing the review concurrently, or are they focusing right now on violence?
I believe they are doing it concurrently.
Okay. I wonder if there's value to them pausing any charter changes until we conclude our review?
Yeah, I can, again, reach out to them. I had the opportunity to talk to them at the last conference, but every time I went to talk to the person, she was gone. So let me reach out to them again and see, now that she's maybe had more of a chance to look at it. It's been a couple months. See where she's at and what she's thinking.
I'm also happy to share with you and through you to them, where we're at with the charter review. If that's instructive for them on how they should proceed with their work.
And I apologize, I probably should have done that before tonight's meeting. It's
No,
just, like you said, I've been a little busy.
if they have guidelines, principles, that they use to do the reorganization, and we knew those same principles, we could apply them.
Okay.
So it would make the mapping, when the things finally have to come together, it would make that mapping a little bit easier, I think.
I think anything that they come out with the charter, I don't think they're gonna probably make a lot of changes to the charter, because again, it's not their purview to make changes. Their purview is to show what's in conflict with the bylaws. So I really anticipate that there's not gonna be a lot in the charter, unless it's something that is really crazy. Yeah. That would be my guess. Because the charter, it's more difficult to change the charter than it is to change the bylaws. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, so, and then you're gonna have me come back when we talk about elections?
We can do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any further questions for Kelly? Thank you for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
We'll do that when she comes back. I have a question about referendums, but we'll wait till he gets.
All right, we'll do that under elections.
I know a little bit about referendum.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, everyone.
And I now know more about it than I wish to need to know.
I also, let Karen Keen know that we give her the floor as well, so Karen, if you'd like to come on up and give us a little education on your department and specifically your interactions with the Board of Health.
Sure, so I'm Karen Keen, Director of Public Health, here in Plymouth. And I just want to share some information with you folks tonight. First of which is under Massachusetts, Chapter Law, Part 1, which is Administration of the Government, Title 16, which is Public Health, Chapter 111, which is also Public Health, Section 27, which is the organization of boards, appointment of physician and clerk, and compensation, which is, we just talking. That's fine. But Section 27 says every such board shall organize annually by the choice of one of its number of chairman, which we do. It may make rules and regulation for its own government, which would be the town of Plymouth, and for the government of its officers, agents, and assistants. It may appoint a physician to the board who shall hold this office during its pleasure. It may choose a clerk. And if it was in a city, which we're not, we're in a town, it may also employ necessary officers, agents, and assistants to execute the health laws and its regulation. So in other towns like Kingston that has an elected board of health, they actually are the hiring authority for their department. Here in Plymouth, we have an appointed board of health through the select board, and the department serves as employees of the town. So I just, then, more interesting information. Massachusetts has a decentralized governance structure as defined by the National Association of County and City Health Officials, which means the 351 towns in Massachusetts operate independently for their local public health, and autonomously from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. So what that means for us here in Plymouth, there are many Massachusetts laws which we need to follow, but we follow them here in the town of Plymouth. Not getting direction from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, but through our Department of Public Health, a division of Health and Human Services currently, and working with the 5-member board. So, do you want me to continue with some of those responsibilities are?
Yeah.
Okay. So records, record keeping and reports. There are many, many different records that are responsibility of the Department of Public Health. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 111, Section 28. We have to report on cases of diseases. We process death certificates. We have to report any contagious diseases or dangerous diseases to the Department of Public Health. We consult with the Department of Public Health about prevention of dangerous diseases. These are all under Massachusetts General Law, Chapters 111. Also under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 140, we also work with other departments as far as rabies is concerned. So make sure that we're working with the town clerk's office, making sure all of our animals, domestic dogs are vaccinated for rabies. And if we have any type of dog bites in the town of Plymouth, whether with people or with other animals, we are the keeper of record of those as well. We also receive reports of food poisoning and other food complaints, and that is under 105 CMR 300. Then we also deal with housing. We enforce Chapter 2 of the state's sanitary code, minimum standards of fitness for human habitation, which is Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 111, Sections 127A and 127B. So what does that mean? That means that if I live in an apartment in the town of Plymouth and I have a concern that's not being addressed by my landlord, I can go to the Department of Public Health and I can say, I would like to file a complaint because of whatever the situation is. I don't have any heat, my roof is leaking. He doesn't pick up the trash like he should, so I have a lot of trash that's, you know, spooled around my property. We then would go out and we would conduct an inspection. We would meet the occupant at the location and we conduct an inspection. That inspection would include not only their concern, but also anything else that we would see. So it's a thorough investigation, not just that one item perhaps that they mentioned, but we would actually do a thorough investigation while we're at the property. Then we would send an order letter to the landlord, letting them know what needs to be corrected and in what time that needs to be corrected by. And there are standards that needs to be set. There are certain things that have to happen within 24 hours. heat and hot water, 24 hours. Other things, they can have a little bit longer. Their railing on their step is broken. They'll have 7 days for that. Some things could take up, they might have up to 30 days to correct. So that's something that we do through the department as well. We also regulate trash haulers. So anyone who picks up trash here in Plymouth, we also regulate them, we also license them. So everyone who picks up trash has to tell us who they are, where they are, who they're picking up from. That part's not public record, we don't release the addresses. Where they bring their trash to, the tonnage, total tonnage of their trash, and also the total tonnage of their recycled items. Then, continuing on, we also, not only deal with housing complaints, but if you have any type of complaint in the town of Plymouth, which might fall under the abate a nuisance order, which means if you have a noise complaint, a smell complaint, a trash complaint, something that's, you have a thumping sound coming from the house next to you, or you live next to a commercial property and they have a fan that's running 24/7 and it's exceptionally loud to you. Those are things that fall under the abate a nuisance. And we would inspect those as well in the department, and then we would send an order out to the owner of the establishment or the owner of the property to let them know what needs to be corrected. We also license all of our food establishments here in Plymouth, of which there are over 400. We are also responsible for inspecting those food establishments, and depending upon what type of establishment they are, those inspections might be 1 time, 2 times, or 3 times a year. Pools and beaches, camps, motels, and mobile home parks. Also the responsibility of the Public Health Division, part of Health and Human Services Department. We inspect semi-public pools, of which Plymouth has 62. Which means that we don't have a public pool. A public pool would be if the town of Plymouth had a pool for all of their residents. That doesn't exist in the town of Plymouth. However, we have 62 semi-public pools, which means that they're in neighborhoods, they're in hotels. They're not private. Private pools would be if you built one in your backyard. I mean, only people that you wanted to invite there would be able to utilize that pool. Those other pools, the 62 that I talked about, need to be inspected at least once a year. And by inspected, I mean that we test the water, we make sure that all the levels are appropriate for the water, and then we also check the safety of the surrounding area of the pool. Things like ladders, steps, are they marked appropriately? Do they have the safety equipment that they need, which would be, a hook. If someone is having in distress in the pool, is the hook long enough that they can reach them? So that's something else that, the public health would also be responsible for. Then working with our 5-member board, we also, create rules and regulations. Now, these aren't bylaws. The town of Plymouth has bylaws, but the town of Plymouth also has rules and regulations, of which there are several that fall under the department and with working alongside with the board. Something like smoking. We changed the regulation to also include now no smoking on town-owned property, including beaches and ponds. That's something that we worked with the board votes on that, and then at what we call the public hearing, and then at the public hearing, the board votes on it, and that was added. Let's see, did I miss anything? I don't think I did. I didn't go into all the numbers. I don't think that you need to know all the numbers right now, but I can certainly share all the numbers with you, what all those laws are that I mentioned.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
This is usually a question that Barry gets to ask you at our board trustees. Does the department have any recommendations for how we might proceed with the review of the charter, which obviously doesn't spell out everything that you talked about, and I think intentionally so, because you know, one of the things that you mentioned was rules and regulations. We recently instituted some, rules and regulations for short-term rentals in town.
Mhm.
If we had a charter, that delineated the powers that, your department can have, and, as well as the Board of Health, it could have been limited in our ability to do so. But, so I think that the department itself should not be charterized.
Correct.
And I hope you.
I agree.
What about we've actually pulled up on the screen for folks to see section 3-7 -1 and -2, which address the Board of Health. And the appointments process and the powers section. Do you folks have any recommendations for that?
No, I'm glad that I like to see it says seek to appoint one member, and that's not mandatory. Because I would not want to see us have to not have a full member board because we did not have the opportunity to appoint. Or the select board did not have an opportunity to appoint a physician.
So if a physician didn't want to apply, but we had two perfectly capable nurses,
Mhm.
they could take that.
Just anybody.
Correct,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah, with the permission of the chair.
Sure.
I'd like to make one possible change.
Come a little closer, Barry, so we can get you on the Zoom, on the owl.
I'd like to make one possible change, that the alternate member being appointed only for a 1-year term.
Mm-hmm.
I believe our current alternate is probably already beyond 1 year.
Yes.
And it would be probably an imposition upon the select board to constantly be changing the alternate member who is experienced and wants to stay on the board as an alternate member every year. So, you might consider the possibility of changing that 1 year also to like a 3-year term to make it uniform.
Would you agree, Karen?
What does the planning board do?
The planning board, if we appoint an alternate, we have a 1-year term and we could reappoint as the 1 year.
As the planning board.
As the board comes up. Part of it because alternates may or may not want to stay, depending on what's going on, their level of commitment, et cetera. Also, some people use the alternate position as a decider as to whether or not they want to be full members. So that often happens when the next position becomes available, they move on up.
So could it be something that if we did the alternate member for a term of 1 year and they wanted to continue into year 2, it could be an administrative note with the select board and not necessarily something that had to be posted as an open position?
Yeah, well, I don't know about the.
No.
posting.
No, you'd have to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Just as a side, we had a change to the Distinguished Visitor Committee where it wasn't, we reduced it. And it was just an administrative process, but I think you would have to.
Yeah.
You would have to post that.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think a person that's committed, I'm not sure there's a line of people, you know, I'm not saying it's not a good committee or whatever. But I think leaving it that way, you know, gives that person the flexibility if they decide they don't want to do it, you know. So,
Could there be another appointing authority, such as the health board? The board of health, is that?
That's the appointment authority is the board of selectmen. The
Yeah,
select board
but
is
I
the
was wondering if.
No, but it should say the board.
Yeah,
Appointed.
could there be? Yes. Ought there be, I think is the question. And something you might have.
I believe in chapter 111, Massachusetts General Law does say that the executive branch, whether it be a town administrator, exactly, they have to be the appointing authority.
I just give you some history on this. The position in the town manager's office has taken appointments seriously, both as town manager and select board appointments. And I don't see it, I mean, that person has a list and a date on which, what do we have, 63 committees and boards. And the problem of reappointing someone, an alternate, is minimal, to say the least, and I'm not sure that. It's just an administrative task, and it's a task that occurs time after time, so it's not really necessary to change, in my view.
Yeah.
Can I ask one other question of Karen? All of the things that you mentioned, they are, am I correct, that they're covered by Mass General laws or town bylaws?
Correct.
Okay, that's why the Board of Health, the Health Department does what it does. Okay.
Joe.
Could I ask a question about, regional responsibilities? Is there any, context that we should know about, or that needs to be in a charter? That have to do, there are organizations on the Cape, and
Yes.
there are organizations north of us, and.
Correct. There are definitely some regional health systems within the state of Massachusetts. We are not part of one. As a side note, though, we are part of the Public Health Excellence Grant award. We've received a Public Health Excellence Grant from the state of Massachusetts, where we do work with 5 other communities in the area: Kingston, Plimpton, Carver, Kingston, and Duxbury. But that is not as part of our government. That is something that's through the grant that we've received.
Is there a benefit? Might there be a benefit from, say, partnership with an association in Falmouth or?
There would be a benefit to the other town, to be perfectly honest with you. They would be. There would be a great benefit to other smaller towns if they were to join a regional partnership with the town of Plymouth. I don't know if there would be a true benefit to the town of Plymouth to do that.
Can you expand on that?
Not really a charter issue, is it?
No, I don't think so, but Joe, you and I had a conversation about, regional,
Yeah, please.
outside of this, but is your question like, are there any financial benefits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, financial and also community health benefits.
Sure.
So, you know, when you run out of COVID vaccine, are there like, backups or cooperative agreements that might help us as a population?
Well, actually, during COVID, we did have them. I mean, during situations like that, it's sort of all hands on deck. And we certainly did work with our other surrounding towns. The future of us being in a regional health,
Collaborative.
yeah, I don't see that anytime in the near future.
Yeah, with Commissioner the Chair, just like to point out that the Public Health Excellence Grant for Shared Services partly addresses that. Because we've had instances where one town would lose a health inspector. And if that happens, then the health inspector for one of the other towns obviously can help them out until they're able to find a new person. And
Good example.
and that does work, and it works very well. The other thing that works very well is we have a lot of shared problems and concerns. And it's really helpful to get information from the other town members about things that, you know, they may have found a solution to something that we didn't. More often, we found the solution and they didn't even think about it yet.
Yeah. So there's no benefit, you don't think there'd be benefit, from, adding any legality to that? To the cooperative, to these kinds of cooperative arrangements? I mean, do other towns do it?
Not in this area. There was down the Cape, there's amazing one that works. They also have great support from the county government. And then out west, there's also another area that does work together, and that was out of necessity. Because those towns are very small and they didn't have the staff to do a lot of things that they really had to do based upon what's required of them through these laws that we talked about.
Yeah.
But I do think, like Dr. Poffit said, I think that, and again, a little side off the charter, but important, I think, for folks to know, is that Public Health Excellence Grant is for 5-year terms at a time, up to, we hope to 2035. So we are talking about, it's $537,000 every year. Shared amongst the other, within the towns, but it does give us the opportunity, as Dr. Parkin said, to bring additional staff that is not on my budget. You know what I mean? So in turn saves, when you talk about financial,
Yeah.
it certainly does save the town money because it's a shared service that we're utilizing the grant for. So in my own budget for my fiscal year, I don't need to put in that additional inspector because we're sharing one through the grant.
If I may.
Sure.
Quickly, I want to pull this conversation back into the charter. because I
Right,
think-
that was my question.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we've been talking about that you can't do if you
Yeah.
felt like it?
No,
Okay, then we're out of it.
yes. Yeah, I think to memorialize a crosstown partnership, a regional partnership, would, in the charter would be an error, because we also don't know if those other
Well-
towns want to do it, so.
The top version, that's. really-
Yeah, I think we should focus in on, the Board of Health here, so it sounds, Karen, like you keep the Board of Health section as is, hold on a second. Maria.
Yep.
Michelle, can you scroll down briefly to 3-7-2? Right, there's good, thank you.
That's where I was going to comment.
Hold on,
Okay,
anything that the department would recommend we change about these?
All right, you have to do section 3 past 5.
No, 3-2, 3-7-2.
No. Actually, shall should be must, no. I must exercise.
So what I'd like to do you have anything further to present, Karen?
I don't, unless this is the question.
Yeah, so what I'd like to do is, I'd like for us to move on, to, actual discussion of the sections. And unless there's objection, since we have some experts here, I'd like to start with section 7. Does anyone object to that? 3-7, which is Board of Health.
all right.
Excellent. Michelle, could you scroll up to 3-7-1? And I will do as I normally do, read the section. So 3-7-1 reads, a Board of Health of 5 members shall be appointed by the Select Board for 3-year overlapping terms. The Select Board shall, in making appointments, seek to appoint 1 member who is a duly licensed physician. Does anyone have any qualms with that first part, 3-7-1? Excellent. Hearing and seeing none. The second paragraph reads, in addition, the Select Board may appoint an alternate member for a term of 1 year, which alternate may act from time to time when designated by the Chair of the Board of Health if a regular member is unable to act as a result of absence or conflict of interest. Any changes to that? Dr. Crofton suggested that we make it a 3-year term. Go ahead, Steve.
I guess the question I have is, do we want to give the Board of Health the option of requesting or not requesting an alternate? So instead of having the Select Board just simply decide to assign an alternate, having the Board of Health, so at the request of the Board of Health, they may do so.
Is your question related to initial appointment or reappointment?
It would be both. Essentially, I'd like to, for an alternate, it may just be one of those circumstances where the board may be able to say, this person is or isn't working out. And give the Select Board that sort of heads up. I don't know if there's a way to do that, or if that needs to be formalized or not. I just raised the question since I want to give the Board of Health every opportunity to manage its own affairs, as we regularly said. We give you the why, but not necessarily the how, give you the how.
Larry, then Len?
My question was, maybe going in the opposite direction, changing may to shall. That either, my picture of the design that we are creating for the town is that there are certain authority levels. There is the town, you know, we know, town manager and board select board and planning board on the town side. And if the select board, excuse me, is in control of the Board of Health, and they are because they're the appointing authority, then they are in control of the Board of Health. And therefore, if we believe that there should be an alternate, and it sounds as though that there is an agreement that there should be an alternate, then in that case, the charter can give the select board a directive that, you know, we've given them a directive. You have to have 5, you know, that's what the charter says, and if you don't do it, you're in conflict with the charter. And I think we should do the same thing with the alternate. And it is the case that somewhere else in the charter, it talks about disappointment, if I could use that phrase. If anyone that the select board appoints, they can unappoint. So I'm not worried about, you know, the ins and outs of getting rid of a person. They can do it. It's just up to them. And as far as how the board interacts with the select board, clearly the chair of the Board of Health can go to the chair of the select board and say, hi, this is what I think. And the select board can act however it wants with that information. So my proposal to narrow it down is just to change may to shall.
One of the things that, and I'll come to you in a second, Lynn.
That's
One
fine.
of the things that I think I've heard a couple of times throughout this process is that we might want to look at what the roles of alternates across boards are through this charter process. I don't think we should do that tonight. But one of the things that we did here in this meeting was we actually modeled our alternate schema on what the Board of Health is currently doing, which is to have them act as regular members when there's an absence, or I don't think we consider conflict of interest in ours, but essentially we decided whenever there was a person unavailable for a vote, our alternates would be able to come into vote. So perhaps we should think about having a model whereby we address what the alternate's powers are. But I think for tonight, the question is, I think, what's the action? Is it may or shall? And then what the length of term is.
Right.
I'll come back to you in a second.
Well, I was asking a question about something Steve said. Doesn't every board have the ability to go to the select board, every board or committee, and ask them to potentially replace a member? Because of, like, we have somebody in one of the committees I'm on that hasn't been, since she's been appointed, hasn't been in the meeting. So there's some rules that says, so, I mean, so do we need to make a special case for the Board of Health for that?
The reason I raise it is only because we have an instance sometimes in town where, because the alternate does not have the same role, you don't necessarily get the same quality of candidate coming up for the alternate. So when you say you shall appoint an alternate, they go ahead and we're going to say, okay, here's the alternate, who wants to be the alternate? And just one person randomly goes, all right, you know what, I'll do it. You don't want to be mandated to say, okay, I have to take this person. That's the concern that I have, is I want to give I wanted to make sure that the Board of Health, in having an alternate, was getting an alternate that was of equal quality as the member, especially given that they take that role, that they step in, you should have someone of equal quality. And sometimes we have, because alternates could sit around for a period of time and not do something, they may go, yeah, I don't really want to, I don't get the same level of quality of person. Other instances you do, you get people who are genuinely interested and will contribute regardless. But I just wanted to balance that.
As you do.
I can address a lot of that, I think.
Yeah, and I'll give you the floor in a second, Barry. I want to go back to the appointment of the alternate on the Board of Health. So we actually, so the select board didn't actually follow the charter when they appointed our alternate. They appointed 2 members to the Board of Health and did not designate who was the alternate and who was the full member. We actually decided in our meeting who that would be, so
We did.
collectively, these two boards did not follow our current chart, so I think we need to be clearer as to. And I hate to disagree with Barry, but I think we should keep it as a 1 year because of exactly what Steve is talking about in terms of quality and commitment to the board. If they wanna go up for a full position at some point, I wanna see that they've given us some commitment. This is where I'm at, but I'll let you take over from there.
Okay, so just history of what's happened. I've been on the board for almost 6 years now, chair for 5 years. We lost one person from the board who wasn't coming to at least 50% of the meetings. That I believe is a disqualification, right? So that person was removed. It's the only person I can think of that was involuntarily removed. I do agree that the wording should probably be changed from may to shall. Because it's become a valuable sort of plus for the Board of Health to have the alternate available. I think that, you know, the alternate, in terms of the quality of the people that fill these positions, our current alternate is actually a nurse. I don't remember who the alternate was before that, but
He was, a public health, what was his name? He left to go somewhere down south.
Oh,
He's
yes,
emergency management.
yes,
Right,
yes, yes.
So in terms of quality, I haven't noticed that there's a big difference between the quality of the full members and the alternate. And yes, sometimes the alternates do end up saying, I really want to be a full member instead. And so as soon as an opening occurs that the select board has to fill, so, okay, well, just notify the select board through the town manager's office that you would wish to be appointed as a full member. Last time this happened, usually that's what occurs, but some cases, there's people on the select board saying, well, these are all well-qualified people. We have one full member opening and we have one alternate member opening. And so which would you prefer? And the candidates are asked at the time they're appointed. And that works as well, because some people would rather have the option of choosing one or the other.
Right, well, Alan had a.
I was gonna ask, and maybe I heard this earlier, is there a restriction that prohibits the Board of Health from making their own appointment of an alternate? There is a mass general law, the selectmen have to do it?
Our charter.
Oh, our charter system?
Yeah,
Is there any appetite that the Board of Health makes their own decision on an alternate?
I thought that would be,
Good.
I think that has to be done through a charter commission, because that's an actual change. And
I don't think that that's correct. So I guess the question is, what exists in Massachusetts general law that,
the executive.
that
Yeah.
dictates who appoints?
Yeah, because I brought that up earlier.
If we,
Are you looking that up?
Mhm.
if we were looking at, if we were looking at a situation where, it's required that the executive be that town manager or select board or mayor or city council, I guess, does the appointment process, then we would not be able to change it through charter.
Right. Can I just jump in?
The rationale is, especially if you're going to have an alternate have the same authority as a fully appointed member, then the appointing authority has to be the one to appoint them. Because
Yeah, and that's good
otherwise-
thinking. I didn't think of it.
Because otherwise,
That
again,
makes
you
sense.
don't have that level of consistency. in
That would
others.
also be extending their role beyond what is already established, you don't have to be through statute.
So,
I don't think the state actually mandates that there has to be an appointment for Board of Health members. In some cases, they're elected.
Yeah, the last elections too. But I'm sure, I wonder if there's let me just check here. Board of Health, no Board of Trustees, Board of Dental. Yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing under chapter 111 any kind of, inspector's appointment. I'm not seeing appointments come up in regards to boards of health members. I'm doing a control F here, so, here,
Here, without jumping through all the hoops, is that something that would be beneficial to the board? Or is that a task you don't really wanna wade into, keep it at the select board level?
The only problem that happens when we go to the select board level, if there's a vacancy which was unexpected,
Right.
because it occurs sometime not during the normal, end of somebody's appointment, and they suddenly leave for whatever personal reason they have to leave.
It gives your board or the board of health the ability to move quickly and fill that.
Yeah,
Well,
because it takes longer usually for the select board to, schedule interviews and decide who they want to pick, if they get any applicants.
That's,
Go ahead.
so the Board of Health is a situation where we have all these committees and boards in Plymouth. And that's a situation where you just don't want me, I mean, I don't, you don't want me, and I don't wanna be on that board, but you know what I'm saying is that you wanna find somebody that can bring, some knowledge and value, just not somebody who's gonna sit there and occupy a seat. And I'm not sure taking it away from the select board is gonna change that. What's gonna change, only thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna advertise there's an opening and you go in and fill out that form and you bring the form and send it to Brad or Derek, or whoever reads those, or maybe Ginny. And then they have a hearing at a select board meeting and they vote on you. They either put you on the committee or they don't put you on the committee or the board or whatever it is. And so I'm not sure taking it away from the select board changes anything. The real question is, what's the process to get somebody, to find somebody that's willing to take on that role? And I think that's done outside of the select board, because if you found somebody or you knew somebody who was a friend that wanted to do that, you thought was highly qualified, all they gotta do is fill out the form, and it's a formality for the select board to appoint them.
There was one position, that joined the board who happened to be an across the street neighbor of mine.
Right. So I think if we start creating these separate entities for different boards and things, I think it just gets kind of confusing.
We lose both consistency and then there's the question of transparency.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, we're no longer as transparent. Well, the select board does this, but not this, and then
Right.
this group does this. Well, what about this group? And
Mhm.
we're trying to actually streamline this whole thing so that everybody knows what the process is and it's relatively consistent.
So there is one other thing that could be changed. And you could word it so that, the select board may make or shall make appointments after consultation with the department director and the current chair of the board of health.
I don't think there's anything that prevents
Yeah.
those folks from expressing their opinion. We've rejected that, in other committees. Well, all that I can find at this point, section 111 talks about boards of health in cities, or chapter 111 rather. It goes on to say that, boards of health in towns are, appointed by the means described in chapter 41 of the Massachusetts General Law. All I can seem to find under chapter 41 is, section 23C.
So that's section 27,
27?
I think so.
All right, well, 23C, I'll talk.
You read this every night?
No, I'll go to 27. So 23C says, no person shall be authorized by vote of a town to act on behalf of the Board of Selectmen unless the vote provides that such person shall be appointed by and removed by said board. So to me, that says that the Board of Health can't be outside of the select board,
Right.
but section 27 was repealed.
Oh, I never done our number.
So I
think you're right.
I think that it has to be the Board of Health, the select board.
Yes.
I agree.
Alright, so let's hone in on what the two issues are.
Well, let's also add that it does work well.
Yeah, it does.
The select board has some comprehension of what kind of a person would make a good board of health member. There's no doubt about it.
By show of hands, how many people think we should make the appointment, keep the appointment as a may?
Say what name?
The select board may appoint.
It's like a
Oh,
show.
as a
Versus
bay.
shall.
I'm sorry.
How many people think we should go shall?
Can I make a mixed suggestion?
Sure.
At the request of the board, the select board shall. So that way.
The Board of Health.
Yeah, sorry, the Board of Health, right, at the request of the Board of Health, the select board shall appoint.
We do that anyway already, because sometimes somebody leaves before their year is up. And we make a request to the select board, and we need an alternate, please, you know.
How many think that we need to include that language?
Say it again, Steve.
At the request of the Board of Health, the select board shall appoint. So that way,
Yeah.
it's up to the Board of Health to decide if it does or does not want the alternate. If you do, you just make the request and they'll do it. But, and again, Mr. Pizer knows my mentality is always, I don't look at what happens now or what is happening now. I'm looking at options for the future to create as much flexibility as possible, so that if the time comes that you go, all right, we've sort of taken a straw poll and the alternate thing is not working right now, to give the board, that board in the future, an opportunity to say, we just want to keep it the way we are.
So if
Historically, the Board of Selectmen hasn't been my favorite group, but I don't believe that we should be operating on the basis of our opinion of individuals who occupy the office. What we're doing, if we adopt this language that Steve proposed, is limiting the select board. In other words, the select board wants to appoint, let's just say, an alternate, but they can't, because we've just said they can only do so if the Board of Health. So I would just assume simplify and leave things as they are.
Yeah, that's all. No, I understand that point. It's a valid point, but that's kind of why you have the may. As it is now, I was trying to work with the shall request, but may gives you the alternate idea, which is like.
So, do you want an alternate? Is,
I
you think
think-
an alternate is a good thing for the board?
Absolutely.
Then it should be
Yeah, that's
shall.
what I thought.
Okay. So how many folks think it should remain 1 year? All right. Excellent. Thank you, Tim, for giving your thumbs up. So here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see someone make a motion that, the second paragraph of 3-7-1 read, the select board shall appoint an alternate member for a term of 1 year, which alternate may act from time to time when designated by the chair of the Board of Health, if a regular member is unable to act as a result of absence or conflict of interest.
I'll make that motion.
Excellent. Mr. Pizer makes the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Levin seconds. In fact, Michelle, I think we're also deleting the in addition part and just starting to set the select board shall. Very good. Be as emphatic as possible. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the roll. Again, I'll note that Mr. Bolton is acting as a full member. Mr. Bolton, your vote.
Yes.
Ms. Kavako is no longer present. Mr. Costello,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Levin,
Yes.
Mr. Pizer,
Yes.
Ms. Votring,
Yes,
Mrs. Zubaroli is not present, and I vote yes as well. The motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Do you folks have anything else to add before we move on to other not related things?
No, I wish you luck.
Well, thank you.
Your deliberation.
We still have to deal with 372.
Oh, yes, we do have to deal with 3-7-2. There's probably gonna be some discussion on this one, so you might want to stay. 3-7-2 reads, the Board of Health shall exercise such powers and duties as prescribed by the general laws, this charter, and town bylaws. Mr. Spicer.
As opposed to what? I am going to, when the time comes, move to eliminate 3-7-2 because they don't have a choice. They have to do that by state law.
Yeah, true.
Is there any, well, let me ask, do you folks have any?
I just wonder if it's there. When time goes by and none of us are here anymore, and someone reads this document and they say, I don't know, who did give them the power to do those things, or who did they have to follow? It will say general laws, the charter and the town bylaws, and not just something else.
That in a way is more limiting, because then, you know, who knows, there might be another authority that demands that the Board of Health and the department, do certain things. All we're saying is, and then I've said this throughout these meetings, not just with the Board of Health. When people have to do something, there's no point in the charter saying they have to do it, because they do. And to answer your question, any person should be able, who is appointed, and if the town manager has any intelligence, that person has to know that Mass General Laws is one of the places he has to go, or she.
But what if I was reading this as a resident?
Thank you.
What if I was just Joe Smith on Main Street and I wanted to read our charter because I want to know more about my town government? I may not know that.
Well, okay.
Can I,
Hold on, let's get these things.
Well, that's just me
Under
being,
control.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Well, Alan, then Len, and I think Joe.
Hey, we've had that discussion, I'm in your camp, we've had that discussion throughout our existence. But what we've come up with, we haven't come up with it in whole yet, but there's gonna be a handbook, is that the term we've now adopted? There's gonna be a handbook that would be a second document, that would allow Mr. and Mrs. Resident to go and find out, because this is probably about the
Okay.
fourth or fifth time, maybe half a dozen time we've done that, we've sort of stripped away that language for each department before yours. It's no hit on your department, it's just, that's the way we've done, this handbook is gonna pick up the slack. And this is in the spirit of being consistent.
No offense to Mr. and Mrs. Resident, but the charter is not where they should be going to get their explanations of things. This is a legal document that dictates how we function.
I'm gonna go Len, then Joe.
this is the constitution for the town. We're trying to get it out of the operational business. Like there's a section here that says the Department of Public Works will plow snow. Okay?
Which is perfectly
But that's the
capable of reading the
I think
Constitution.
so, but we read the Constitution of the United States.
But the Constitution tells you how to do things. It tells you what you can and can't do. It doesn't tell you how. It doesn't have the how part in it. Well, I'm just telling you our mentality.
Okay.
And so I will tell you, there's probably a lot of people who might not know what general law means, might not know what bylaws mean. So things will change. If everything changes tomorrow, let's say, for example, the state comes down and says, we're gonna change the way local board of health interact with the state. We would have to go back and change that. So this guide, I'm getting away from the hype, but this guide, the guide that your town of Plymouth, to help you understand, is gonna be more of a novel than it is gonna be a document like this, because
So-
it's gonna have some depth to it.
So what you said earlier, Karen, is that we don't answer to the Mass DPH, right?
Right.
But if the Mass DPH promulgates a set of rules that requires boards of health to participate in certain activities, it's not covered in our charter. Our charter says that we only exercise powers and duties that are in general laws, charter, and town bylaws. What Len's saying is if Mass DPH suddenly said, now all boards of health, you have to do this. And we're gonna have to do it, right? Because the state agency has made that declaration, probably with the support of.
What about a federal declaration? It turns out there's an emergency and they're now saying all boards of health
Yeah.
regardless.
So
We're still not.
not covered.
Okay.
And I agree with you 100%. As a new citizen of Plymouth. I think it's important that we have some way to communicate to the residents that are interested about certain things about. I live in one of those neighborhoods about the pools. And it has to be tested, the water. They don't understand why it has to be tested that many times a week. And I said, because the Board of Health says that. The charter's not gonna do that. You're gonna have some kind of guideline that talks about different things and.
I would also argue that my generation is almost no one in my generation is ever gonna look at the charter. They're gonna email the department before they even think about
Or you'll have a.
Anything that's. If I'm not gonna call you, but if you get text capability at some point, we'll definitely do that. I think Joe's about to emphatically agree with you, Karen.
Exactly, I agree with Karen. And it has to do with, you know, who's the audience for this, right?
Yes.
Is it just the legal community and the bureaucracy? Or is it the residents and folks who wanna know how government works? And so as much context as you can put in there is probably useful, and unless you can convince me that there's harm in it, I'm gonna argue with, I'm gonna agree with Karen.
There's harm in it.
Well, let's do this.
Lack of clarity by whenever you put in a list of something, the second that you omit something else, you've now created harm. That's the problem. We can never be all inclusive, which is why you should be more general.
So you're gonna take out all the descriptions of the town manager's job?
Well, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet,
Let's,
but yeah, am I gonna take out the thing that says the town manager?
hold on.
Agree? Yeah.
Let's pull it back. We're not there.
Started, Karen?
So what I'd like to do is, are there any further questions for Karen or Barry in regards to the powers of the
Yes, I
board?
will leave you to your deliberations.
I should just add that almost everything the Board of Health has to do is in Massachusetts general law.
We only have one thing in the bylaws, right?
I can't think of
The
anything.
regulation of,
The horse, and the horses,
so,
yeah.
Hmm.
Body marks.
bodyworks, that's what it is, yeah. Yeah, so bodyworks and horses
Yeah.
is what we have in the bylaws. So most of what we do is in general.
And it all says shall.
Yes.
You've got no choice, you have.
Any questions for Karen and Barry, because I want to be respectful of their time.
It sounds like what you were saying is that you also follow what you call the rules and regulations, like for smoking, I think.
Correct.
We promulgate those rules.
But yes,
Yes.
right, so the board would create
You
the,
follow.
But that power is derived from general laws.
correct.
Yeah.
So
Unless we-
for the general laws, the board's allowed to establish rules and regulations.
What we could do here is we could redirect powers of the Board of Health, because this allows for boards of health or other regulatory agencies to make those rules. But that is not the conversation I'm hearing tonight. The conversation I'm hearing tonight is that we should just let them do what they're empowered to do. Yes,
I have one just kind of example.
is it a question for Karen or Barry?
Yeah.
A question, let's start with the question.
Okay. Was the ban on smoking indoors is now a state thing, right? It's a state rule. It's not a local rule anymore, right?
Correct,
But it started out as a local rule.
Correct.
Case closed,
correct.
case closed.
Any other questions? Excellent. You're welcome to stay through this next part, but
Oh, thanks.
you're also welcome to.
To run as fast as you can.
Larry, I think you were prepared to make a motion.
We're looking for alternates. You wanna apply?
I move that we eliminate, chapter 3, section 7-2.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, Mr. Pizer makes the motion that we eliminate in its entirety 3-7-2. It's been seconded by Mr. Levin. Is there further discussion on the matter? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Hanlon is not present, nor is Ms. Cavaco. Mr. Costello,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson,
No.
Mr. Waller,
yes,
Mr. Levin,
Yes.
Mr. Pizer,
Yes.
Ms. Boateng.
Yes,
Mrs. Zuccarelli is not present, and I vote yes as well. The motion carries in a vote of 7-1, 7 in favor, no against. All right, thank you folks for being here. We very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, almost over.
Have a good night.
All right, we're gonna get back in order. 7:30. This is like new records for us. Time spent on single issues.
Presentations.
Never keep a good board down, right? We'll jump back up, Michelle, and we'll go back to section 3 appointments. This became, I believe we started to address this on the night of our
25th.
Was that our joint meeting or were I think that was the night we were powering through some of these sections.
Yeah.
So section 3, addresses the appointment powers of the select board. So 3-3-1 states, the select board shall appoint a town manager, town council, registrars of voters, elections officers, constables, and members of all multi-member boards and committees. Scroll down a little more, please, Michelle. And commissions, except as otherwise provided in this charter and or the town bylaws. So I think where we started to go down the discussion of whether it seemed to me when we last met on this particular section, everything prior to members of all multi-member boards, it sounded like there was consensus that that was within the power of the select board. I think where we started to go down some debates was whether or not the select board can and should be empowered to appoint all multi-member boards. From my perspective, this covers other appointment authorities, such as the moderator who currently possesses the authority to appoint all members of the FinCom. It also covers the Charter Review Committee, where the select board is only a single person on the appointment committee for this body. This covers the planning board, which appoints a member to the CPC, which appoints members to open space, which appoints members to the steering committees in town.
Steering committees or subcommittees of the planning board.
Right.
But no, the
Select board has.
Select board has an appointment
Yeah.
to those.
Yeah. So
There is a lot of inconsistency, I agree.
So I think this covers the other appointment authorities in town, but I think there are some who disagree with me. Ms.
Can you,
Boucher?
I don't understand, I don't disagree with you,
Yeah.
because I don't understand how, for instance, the town moderator appointing finance committee,
Yep,
and there are many, as you mentioned.
yeah, so that's elsewhere in the charter. So this line that says, except as otherwise provided in the charter and or the town bylaws is what I mean when I say it covers that appointment. Because it's stated in the charter that the moderator appoints the FinCom members.
Okay,
So. Can anyone think of an example of a board that this would apply to? Off the top of my head, I can't.
That's what?
That this would apply to. Is there a board right now that the selectmen
Appoint, but there
should be appointing? Maybe they're not even doing it at this time, but it's not covered elsewhere in the existing charter. Is there, I can't think of one that would fit the bill.
I can't think of that either.
So, sorry. If other appointing authorities, i.e. the moderator, is listed somewhere else. And under the select board, there's things that they do. And the planning board, there's things that they do. Why do we even have this?
This is to say that the select board is the default appointing committee or appointment authority, unless it said somewhere else in our town governance documents that someone else is supposed to appoint. So as an example, the moderator appoints the FinCom. So
So this is the
otherwise,
catch-all?
otherwise, the select board would be appointing FinCom as an example.
So this,
So I think what this does is it allows to, when there are, incident or subject, related committees, like the dog park committee is something that comes to mind. When there are, small interest groups that want to, push forward something through the town, this allows the select board to be able to establish and appoint those committees, as the default, appointer of multi-member boards.
so this is basically gives the select board the authority to appoint positions.
Board of Health isn't it?
Well, but the Board of Health has a section in the charter.
Yep.
The
Monuments Committee
doesn't, the DVC doesn't,
Right.
the dog park doesn't.
Yep.
So this is the catch-up.
Yeah, it's-
Well, dog park is an ad hoc.
That's.
Well, I understand, but I'm just,
But we do have permanent committees
Right.
that are not listed. in
so
the
this
charter.
is just, this is the catch-up.
But I think it does even more, if I may. It also limits people who aren't the select board from creating committees unless it's stated in the charter. COPC, I think, has the ability to create subcommittees
Right.
of itself because it says so. Historic District Commission doesn't.
Right.
The town clerk can't go out and appoint a multi-member committee. That she'd have to go to the select board to do the appointing.
Yep, I agree with that. I think it also, you don't want, as Larry said, this is no disrespect to anyone who's serving with me. You don't want the 1749 courthouse committee going out and deciding that they're gonna create a subcommittee on the 4th of July celebrations in Town Square. And as Larry said, this is what provides that limitation. Is there any?
So presently, the 1749 courthouses are all appointed by the select board today.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so that's an example of one of those committees.
Yep.
And so should, it has to be left in. I'm with you, okay.
Yeah, there's the
I
cable.
thought there was an opportunity to take it out because it was confusing, but if there's committees out there and there, obviously there are now, then it's gotta stay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on two that aren't covered by the charter. And so this is, like I said, it just keeps the authority for doing that, not to be just somebody going off and
No,
doing.
it's understandable. I think it should stay, no doubt.
Is there anyone who wants to make amendments to this?
No. Oh, sorry.
You mean the section?
To 3-3-1?
I wanted to ask about town council. Is town council mentioned any place else in
Yeah.
the charter?
I don't know if it's mentioned elsewhere in the charter.
In terms of, how long the appointment would be?
And what's the process for the
So
appointment?
town council is, mentioned in.
And I haven't looked throughout the whole charter to see
It's mentioned once again in
where
chapter
else it
5,
might be.
where it talks about, the, placement of a non-binding question on ballot. But it just talks about review and approval of that question. This may be something, for discussion, but by Massachusetts general law, the select board is the appointing authority for all town council, whether it's permanent, whether it's based on, specific issues, whether it's based on in-house or out-house. The select board has the unilateral authority to appoint council.
It's always the executive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that isn't what I'm concerned about is what would be the length of service of
It's
the
the
town
it's the
council.
pleasure of the board.
It's what?
It's the pleasure of the board or as dictated by the
Like
contract.
what the review system is,
There isn't.
so.
Well, she's an employee now, so she's under the,
Well, that's now, but one of the reasons that the town council is not subject to so many other limitations is because they are the representative, they are the legal representative. So for example,
Of town.
of the town, so you
No.
don't have a lot of other people placing their input on who legally represents the town. It's up to the executive to decide who our legal representative is, whether that, you're right, we don't have a term set up, because town council could be set up as a contract player, they can be someone who's now an employee, they can be part-time, full-time, and if we have those restrictions, then we're setting up a requirement rather than giving the
So
flexibility.
I guess,
And we have multiple town council.
Right.
So I did talk to, I got a message to the Human Resource Department today, and they said that they don't have any job description for town council, but that they will have one, or they're looking forward to having it in July. And
Well,
so
now we have
I'm
an
curious to know
Well, now we have an official town council
what that
position.
would be in terms of their, length of service and their review process. Thinking that that's an important thing for that position.
Yeah, but we
But it's
can't,
not in
we
the
can't
charter.
modify that as part of the charter because it's at the sole discretion of the select.
Yeah,
board.
so hopefully,
I'll give you
that
another
will
example.
happen.
Joe has.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'll give you another example, council, is that I'm on the cable advisory committee, and there's a law firm that has represented a million towns in negotiating the contracts with Verizon and Comcast. We have to do the Comcast one, I think, next year. So we have to go to the select board and ask them to authorize us using that firm. Why are we using that firm? Because that's what they do.
Yeah.
No sense in reinventing the wheel and getting somebody and starting over. So I think that's the cases. But just to ask you a question. Aren't town employees at will? Or if they're not union?
Unless they're subject to contract.
Right. So when you ask about term, or if she's an employee at will,
Subject to a contract.
yeah, I mean, she may be subject, but if you're an
Which
employee at
is
will,
probably what
Right.
we'll see. What
that might be
comes
why
out.
there's not a job description, because she's a
Or
kind of
yet.
contract.
Gotcha.
What is this, the scope of, her job? I mean, what is she? So there's KP Law, right? And we know those are municipal lawyers. And, there are the contract lawyers that Len's talking about for unions and whatever. And I mean, does she cover all the grounds, I mean, does she have any constraints at all, with respect to expertise or?
As.
That
as
should be
someone
in the
who's not
job
a Supervisor,
description.
I can't speak to that. I think we're going outside of our mandate, which is to organize the charter.
Well, but how do you, okay, so how does she fit in here?
I think that as is. I don't think there's anything we should do to. I have taken the position, and I think much of the board has taken the position that we ought not to put job descriptions into the charter. So I don't think that there's anything that we should do to address town council beyond his or her appointment, which this does.
Historically, town council does what a lawyer does with a client,
Yeah.
and the client is the Board of Selectmen. Back in the olden days, when I was town clerk, if I needed legal advice, I had to detour through the board's representative, that is to say, the town manager, and say, is it okay if I speak with town council? And so what does town council do? Town council does what.
Well, that's actually part of why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Do I need to go talk to Derek before I can talk to the town clerk and?
No,
what
not
level
the
is-
town clerk, before. you
Not the
talk
clerk,
to
but
town council.
town.
Yes,
I
yes.
can talk to town clerk anytime.
Yes, you do, because town council represents the town. And so the town has to decide who gets to get the legal advice. We need to monitor that and we need to control that.
I think it's important too that we highlight that the town, when we say the town, it's the corporate entity that is the town, not the citizens, not the boards, not even the select board.
No.
The select board makes direction through their, their rulemaking process and through the town manager, but the corporate, the duty that the town council has is to the town.
Not to any individual member, not to anything. So, for example, we had an issue, we've had a lot of people say, town meeting members go, I want to talk to town council. No, you can't have 100 people talking to town council about their personal feelings about what they want to accomplish. That's not the town council's role. Town council's role is to represent the interests of the town corporate in connection with its legal obligations, its
Yeah.
procedural obligations.
So if I wanted a general question, I'd call the attorney general.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I would assume that, putting my corporate hat on here, is the people who work in the town, since they have this person sitting there they have some understanding of the policy to go talk to her, but I mean, to answer Martha's is, I think we should think of town council here in this section is in a more more generic way. It's town council in whatever form it comes in. Is it a hired, as David said, is it somebody that's a
That's what it always
full-time
has been,
employee?
because until
Right.
recently.
And I think we just leave it-
had an employee.
right, right.
It's always-
So when we had KP Law, that was.
That was town
the same-
council.
Same
Town
beat,
council, right.
Yep.
okay.
And I think that's the same going forward. It's no different because we have a full-time, legal person on
Because we
staff.
still have outside counsel for specialty needs, as Len said, for
Right.
example, for the cable advisory board, we're going to have a special counsel. We do have KP Law continuing to do union matters.
Yeah.
We will probably have specialty counsel when it comes to real estate matters and things like that as well.
Or
I think that
being sued.
I think the town is working on, because, I mean, this has come up a bunch of times, even in the COPC, where we've talked about access to, and I see Mr. Donato here, and he is a champion of access to town council. They're working on, a set of guidelines for, volunteers in town, how they will access town council in the future. Remember, it's still a pretty new appointment, that we have an in-house town council who is a full-time employee. Prior to this, we had an in-house town council that was contracted. She held her license, at a separate law firm and still represented the town, sat in town hall. She's only appointed officially in December.
Yeah.
So we've only had a full-time in town, in building town council for about 2 months now. So they're still working out the kinks as to how they're gonna access, but I don't think that's an issue for the charter. I think Len's right. We need to think of town council as not Kate, not her in her position, but any kind of council that the town may have. Larry?
If we're done with discussing town council, just want to make sure we're clear.
Yes.
State law requires the select board to appoint election officers.
Yeah.
However, the select board has delegated, upon my request, maybe 20 at least years ago, has delegated their responsibility to the town clerk, so that when the warden in precinct 4 said she couldn't work, they called me to do it. The select board didn't have to call a meeting to do that. I'm assuming that if it says shall appoint election officers, that doesn't preclude delegating the employment to somebody else.
I think it might.
No, not necessarily, because it shall appoint can also still mean that they direct somebody to appoint, as long as that person has the authority.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they individually, they can always delegate. I would say you'd have to find that something is identified as a non-delegable duty in order to say that, because I think almost all of these duties that they have, they can probably delegate to somebody at some point. If they say, we're going to appoint all boards, but you know what? We're going to actually delegate the responsibility to appoint this board to this committee. Okay, they can do that. That's probably within their parameters, because no one has said, no, you actually have to appoint this one.
I wanted to expose that so that we all understood how it actually occurs. And I think how it actually occurs is wise, and the select board at any time can take back that responsibility. Good luck in finding the 100 and whatever people it takes to run an election.
Right.
And technically, they can just simply say, they can go to you and say,
You have 110 officers.
go get 100, you're authorized to get 110 officers, they have now appointed.
Right. Right.
Even though, I mean, the whole point of the election design is to split off responsibilities so no one can dominate, the town clerk, the board of registrars, the select board, all of these people. But because it says in state law that the select board does it, they're responsible.
Right.
And at any point, someone could complain to them, they're not doing it well. But I think, I just want to make sure that we're feeling that the charter allows what it allows and it does so onto the next.
Is there anyone that wishes to make any changes or amendments to 3-3-1?
No.
Go ahead.
Just clerically, should those other positions be capitalized or not?
Well, we've said town council should be.
Just general, so maybe not that one,
So I
but
would-
register of voters, constables, or
Well, it's
no?
registrars of voters, that's actually a plural. A plurality, that's multiple people, it's not a singular position, right, Larry?
Correct. Yeah.
I think either you do them all or none of them, so I would suggest you just leave them all alone.
We started off doing the first select board town man, that's the only reason I brought it up, but
Yeah.
if it grammatically, that's not needed, that's fine, I just wanted to put it out there.
Well, town manager is defined, is a defined term in our.
Yeah, no, their official term is the Board of Voting Registrars, but they are registrars of voters, so I think we're okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Sure.
How would the CPC fit into this? In the sense that, the act
Yep.
says that, 5 appointed, from elected boards.
Yep.
And 4 at large could be appointed or elected.
Yep.
Is there language in here that allows for us to reset from appointed by the select board to elected?
That's, well, so I think CPC is actually covered by the town's bylaw.
Which is adopted as state law.
So, well, so two parts to your question, Joe. The CPC appointment, of a select board representative is part of
Yeah,
the bylaw, so it's covered.
that's one of the elected boards.
Yep. I don't know that.
It's the at-large that is really, I mean, there would need, right now, the select board appoints the at-large. And those at-large could be elected.
Yeah, so the Community Preservation Committee is not addressed in the charter. So I believe it's only in the bylaw.
Yes, section 41. Chapter 41, sorry,
Of
Right.
of the Bible.
the bylaw.
The answer is, we could.
Yeah.
We could what?
I mean, this says,
Could we recommend that in the charter
yeah,
that the 4 at-large members are elected? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it would probably conflict with the bylaw, so the bylaw would need to be deconflicted, but the charter rules in areas of conflict.
I don't know,
Yes.
can you scan and just see whether there would be
Kate says.
an obvious conflict?
No, because this is the section, it says here that tells you about the 5 members and where they come from. And it says 4 members to be appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So this is what we were talking about earlier. This section 3.3331 is this catch-all for committees that are not covered inside the charter. It's to keep this from being some group of people getting together and say, we're gonna put our 4 people on the CPC. It clearly says 4 members to be appointed by the select board. So this rule that's in my understanding, this thing in the bylaws is being codified by this section in the charter. Does that make sense?
So does that mean that we would have to change the bylaw?
No, it just says that any of these, the CAC, the Cable Advisory Committee, the DVC, that one, the distinguished, that's not covered in the charter. It's
Yeah,
actually
but
not.
Mass General Law says that it can be either elected or appointed.
Yeah, so we could make it as a recommendation that town meeting decide that the 4 at-large members are elected members of the
Right.
CPC. Can't do it tonight because it's definitely not part of our posted agenda, but we could make that recommendation. Ultimately, town meeting would need to adopt it and we need to go through.
But then you'd have to change the
The
bylaw.
state legislature,
well,
and then we would have to
And
deconflict with.
Oh,
and
we
that
could
could
do
change
that.
the bylaw.
or we could do that in one fell swoop.
You just change the bylaw.
No, I mean, to make a motion that if we were going to say that we wanted to do what Joe said, that they were going to be elected, the motion that you're going to have wonderful time creating, or we will, one of millions of motions that we're gonna have before a town meeting would say, we're making this change to the charter and making a change to the bylaw. I mean, we could do that, and we're not precluded from doing that.
But why would we have to change the charter to change how those 4 at-large members are being.
It's a judgment call for us. Do we think it's important enough that we want it in the charter?
We
Oh,
haven't
okay, I'm
even
sorry, I
really
was thinking of
discussed
the,
Yeah.
I was thinking, about it from
Is
a
it
different.
even a section in the charter on the CPC? So
Right.
we'd have to create a section in
Right.
the CPC that would then address the charter
So
law.
who is saying that there is an issue with the CPC that needs to be corrected by having some of them elected?
Me,
Okay? So
Yeah, but
you
we'll,
really are considering that
oh, yeah,
as something that would possibly be right in this section of the charter.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
where it will land.
Yeah,
And I think David would know more about that than me.
I think we're at some point gonna need to discuss, where, charter created, committees belong. There are a number of committees in the charter that fall into executive, fall into, the legislative branch, some of them are outside of both of those chapters, so I think we need to make a judgment call organizationally if we wanna keep them in their existing chapters, or if we wanna combine them into a section that addresses, charter created committees, but that is not a conversation for tonight, so. I think, Joe, if this is something that you're interested in pursuing.
Yeah.
We should work on what it might look like, from a section and motion standpoint, right? So,
Okay,
you can look ahead in the charter and say, this is where I think it could go.
right,
And when we come to that section, I can
okay,
put it on the agenda.
that sounds fine.
Does that work for folks?
Yep.
Very good. All right, I think we're gonna move on from 3-3, which is the appointments process. I think we've come to the consensus that we are okay with it as it stands. Yes?
Yes.
We haven't voted yet.
We don't need to vote. We're not changing.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need to, you don't need to vote. All right, we are at 8 o'clock. I guess so could you scroll down to section 4, the appointment and removal, Michelle? There are several sections or clauses to this section. What is the pleasure of the committee? Do we want to continue with this, or do we want to entertain a motion to table the remaining?
can I ask you if there has been, is this likely to be a long discussion?
I don't know.
Could we start the discussion and find out, and then can always move to table at any point?
We could, yeah, for sure.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
We're talking about the town manager. This is very detailed.
Just the appointment, please, not.
Just 341.
Not his appointment,
342.
not his duties.
I'm sorry, 342.
It's, which is it, 341, 3?
It would be 341 and 342, but not the,
Anything bad?
not the powers and duties of the town, which is 3-5. Let's get started. If we go down a rabbit hole
Okay.
during one of them, we can decide that we're gonna table. All right, 3-4-1, the select board shall appoint a town manager by affirmative vote of 4 members of the board.
Just playing devil's advocate, in the event that we ultimately change the number of select board members, or the select board
Right, that's what I was
opts to
gonna say.
change that number sometime in the future, wouldn't it just make better sense to say by a vote of 4/5?
I don't understand what's not majority,
You don't understand what?
why it's not majority.
Yeah, majority is fine. I mean, because you can have 3,
Majority.
5, and 7, it's typically how it's done.
But,
Or you could have more.
yeah, if
Well, you
the
can.
charter will be revised, if we're gonna change, select board number.
No, I'm not saying that we are, I'm just saying if at some point in the future, so for example.
Let me pull it back, sorry, hold on, let me pull it back. We actually, as a charter review committee, we cannot change the appointment process of the town manager, so we can't do anything with this.
True, I agree with
All
that.
right. 3-4-2, the town manager shall be appointed solely on the basis of executive and administrative qualifications. The town manager shall be a professionally qualified person of proven ability, especially fitted to perform the duties of the office by education, training, and previous experience in municipal administration. The town manager shall have at least 5 years of full-time paid experience as a city or town manager, assistant city or town manager, town administrator or assistant town administrator, or the equivalent level of experience. The town may from time to time establish such additional qualifications as deemed necessary and appropriate. The town manager shall not be subject to a personnel bylaw, if any. In addition to the other terms as set forth in this chapter generally and in section 4 of chapter 3 specifically, the town manager shall devote full time to the office and shall not hold any other public office, elective or appointed, nor engage in any other business or occupation during the term of office, unless such action is approved in advance in writing by the select board. With the approval of the select board, the town manager may serve as the town's representative to regional boards, commissions, and the like. But the town manager may not receive additional compensation from the town for such services. To the extent permitted by law, the terms of the town manager's employment shall be subject of a written agreement between the parties setting forth the length of service, compensation, vacation, sick leave, benefits, and such other matters excluding tenure as are customarily included in an employment contract. I'll go Len and Larry,
I'm good.
then Martha.
This sounds like something out of Indeed. Indeed, the
Online.
online,
Now,
online resume service, the latest. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and go, I don't understand why this is in here. This is a job, this is a combination of a job description, a contract, a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm not sure why the charter is defining that.
Larry?
Going on to agree with Glenn, if the town of Kingston decided to hire Tom Coulter as its town manager, we are prohibited from doing that. He had been a state representative for, I don't know, 4, 6 terms and not part of a town administration. We have something that says previous experience in municipal administration. While that's a little bit weaselly, it sounds as though someone has to have worked in a town before. And I guess the question, Steve is the devil's advocate and I'm the devil. The question that I have is, do we really want to constrain the select board? I mean, we're trusting the select board to hire this leader.
Not me.
Well, we kind of have someone that has to hire the town manager if we're gonna have one.
Well, that's the reason I want them all written down, it's because, to the level of degree of trust, I do or don't need, a lengthy description of how a job might work.
Sure, so just to continue to be devil's advocate, if the governor of Massachusetts decided to retire from elected life. And she had a deep interest, let's take away the personality, whatever your political proclivities may be. This person happens to desire to live in the town of Plymouth and the town manager position was open. What Larry's saying is this would prohibit us from hiring the former governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Despite their deep knowledge about how government in this state works, we wouldn't be able to hire them.
I can put it in even more specific and less hypothetical terms. When we did the town manager search, we had the resume of somebody who was a former senior state official who had managed multiple departments, budgets in the, billions of dollars. This was someone who was actually the former DCR and all of those, so $1 billion budgets and a staff of something like, I think it was 5,000. They were in charge of all that. And we looked through this and said, we can't consider this person. We looked at this and said, our town charter literally prevents us because they have not been a town official somewhere else. And we were somewhat dismayed.
I'm gonna go Martha, and then I have Mr. Lawler, and then Alan.
while I don't agree with this sort of detail in the charter of interest, when I asked at town hall today, the personnel department, they have no job description or anything for town manager. So I think we have to be careful that we don't take everything out of this section for town manager. I'm not quite sure what we should keep in or how we should address that issue. But I, for one, was very concerned when I got that information this afternoon.
Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, can we, point of order, can we, just go, right along and like what Len had said is just make it a question and vote on it, whether or not we want to exclude all of this, these, requirements? And just,
Yeah, absolutely, Tim.
can we just
So
go with a question and a vote and just go along with a vote? You know what I mean?
yeah, let me have Alan make his point, and then I'll come to you for a motion to eliminate 3-4-2.
Okay,
I was just gonna say quickly, although I haven't been a fan, I think in the interest of consistency, we should pull it out. And this will be picked up in the handbook, the description of some of these key items. But it shouldn't be in the charter if we've taken it out. I think we're taking out the DPW director's qualifications, a few others. So it should come out, in my opinion.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Lawler to make a motion. We will have a discussion period during, the aftermath. Mr. Lawler, can you make a motion to eliminate 3-4-2?
motion to eliminate 3-4-2, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. Mr. Levin, will you second?
Yes.
Excellent. We will, now entertain discussion. I have Mr. Levin and Mr. Bolton.
So the fact that there's not a job description is not because did it ever exist? Did they rely on this to be the thing? So, and the fact that there's not one today and all the things that they have to do in the town, I'm not sure spending a lot of energy creating a job description for the town manager is a high priority item. It should be done. I don't disagree with you that it should be done. And I want to make a comment. So Joe doesn't trust the select board. There was, somebody's got to do this. There has to be a job description. You have a strong HR department. That's the way, this is a corporation. We have to get out of the politics of politicizing everything that everybody does. This is a corporation.
Can't hear, sorry.
This is a $300 million corporation. You have a job description. It will get written. I imagine it's on the list of things to do for the HR department. They just lost their manager. There's lots of things that this, as Derek has spoken to us, spoken to the select board, spoken to everybody, goes around and he speaks to community groups. There's a lot for this town to do that hasn't been done, that has been ignored in the past. And so I just think, like Alan said, be consistent with what we're doing here is we're getting out of the operational business in the charter. And this to me is operational. It's not a mandate. Like I said, looks like a job requirements document that you put up on Indeed that you're looking for a manager. And so what happens is if you put in that they can be a state official, then they could be a county official. Where does it end? You could have pages of just listing where they could have worked. Could they work in private practice, in private business? There might be a guy that works in this that could come out of private business and could do a great job. But like you said, this keeps you from doing that. That person that Steve mentioned may not have been a good fit, but you couldn't even consider them. You couldn't even interview them. We saw the interviews on TV. I watched them. I saw those people speak. So it's not done in a cloud. This document is not going to create openness about the process. This is just, it's operational. I think it should be removed.
Yeah, I wonder too, I mean, we must have hired an external firm to run the select board, excuse me, the town manager search, and typically,
To weed through the applications, yeah.
I've seen community paradigm searches, I've seen Collins Center searches. It's usually not a job description, it's usually a prospectus on the town and a scope of work statement for the town manager. So I would be willing to bet that that exists somewhere in this town. I mean, they couldn't have possibly hired Derek without, they must have posted it on, Mass Municipal Association's job site.
Yep.
Which requires you to put something on. So I have no doubt that there is a
Yeah.
job description from the town manager.
Somebody brought 3 candidates to the select board and they had the interviews. It was broadcast live.
Were you
We
still
watched
watching that, Larry? Do you remember if there was a firm? Do you know who it was?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
To be, know exactly who it was, yeah,
Do you know who it was?
yeah, what's his name, shoot,
Was it Community Paradigm?
the local guy, isn't it? Yeah, it's a local.
Yeah,
guy.
it's Community Paradigm. He lives in the Ponds.
Oh, he's in the ponds.
He's in the ponds.
Yeah.
Yeah, Community Paradigm.
Yeah,
I guarantee you, if I email him tomorrow, I could get that job description.
oh no, we have the job.
To be fair, we'll deal with section 5 at some other time, but section 5 is the job description. This is the hiring process.
Right.
Right.
And in reality, there are not. There are a few places in this where you must, but for the most part, there's enough wiggle room that the select board can hire any damn person that they want.
Yeah.
And the question of why the charter should be the place to tell the select board what to do, the way the town works, we elect a politically a group of people who are elected by the people, and then we purposely then say this board, political board, funnels their politics and ends it by hiring a person whom they trust and whom they can fire.
Right.
We don't need to tell them how.
Well, and this provides more guardrails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I had Steve then Tim.
So my thought was, well, I agree that 99% of this seems to be somewhat superfluous, again, describing the professional qualifications and the number of years, et cetera. I do see the value in stating that this person is a full-time employee, has to be hired as a full-time, that we agree, can't hire a part-time manager. I also see that it's valuable to say that they can't be holding any other office, et cetera, just so that becomes clear, so we don't have a question of divided loyalties.
Okay.
And I would even probably tweak the last sentence of the first paragraph, where basically that you would say that they can't, honestly, they can't receive compensation from any other occupation, not just from these, but from any other occupation without prior approval from town, period. That's what it should essentially say. It should basically say, the town manager will be a full-time employee of the town and may not receive compensation from any other position absent prior approval from the town.
All right, so here's what I think we should do at this point. Mr. Lawler, I will ask you in a moment to withdraw your motion, and Mr. Levin, I'll ask you to withdraw your second. I think we need to work on paring this down and presenting a streamlined version of this that includes some of the language that Mr. Bolton has just discussed. Because I saw some heads nodding that these were valuable elements.
Yep.
Steve, would you be willing to take on the editing piece? And
Sure.
if you're not a full member, I'll present it as a full member and I'll take a motion on your behalf. Does that work?
Happy to do so, happy to work with
If
anybody.
anyone would like to join Mr. Bolton, please reach out directly to him. No more than 3 additional members, please.
I'll work with you.
Mark is on.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
No problem.
Feel free, if you'd like, to continue on with 3-4, because Michelle, would you scroll down for a moment? To 3-4-2 and 3-4-3. This section continues on for a couple of other sections, so if there's recommendations that you folks would like to make beyond that Indeed posting piece, feel free to do that. Mr. Lawler, will you withdraw your motion, please?
I withdraw my motion.
Mr. Levin, will you withdraw your second?
I will draw my second.
Thank you. Would someone make a motion to table section 3-4, section 3-5, and section 3-10? Mr. Hutchinson, has made the motion. Mr. Piper, will you second? Excellent.
So we're doing 2, 3, and 4.
So we're gonna table the rest of 3-4, all of 3-5, and all of 3-10. So the remainder of the town manager appointments and removal, all of town manager powers and duties, and all of conservation commission. Unless there's significant desire to debate this, I'll call the roll. Hearing and seeing none, Mr. Bulletin?
Yes.
Mr. Hanlon is not present, nor is Ms. Cavaco. Mr. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson? Mr. Lawler?
Yes.
Mr. Levin?
Yes.
Mr. Pies?
Yes.
Ms. Vautrin?
Yes,
Mr. Zuccarelli is not present, and I will actually vote yes this time. We will go down very dark. Is there any new business?
I have one thing to comment on.
Guys,
Along your line, you were asking how the new minutes were made. All of a sudden, it appears that PAC TV, you can watch PAC TV things on YouTube.
Yep.
But what happens when you watched it, a few hours afterwards, it would disappear. You couldn't go, it was never it's there now. You can go back and see stuff. Our meeting was put up on YouTube TV. The last meeting we had here, the Zoom meeting was actually put up and you could sit there and listen to it and watch it. So a lot of if you don't want to go to the library, you can do it on YouTube. I subscribe to the PAC TV YouTube channel for this and they're all there now. So if you ever want to go back and look at stuff like the select board meeting will be
No,
there.
I'll be honest, I do that quite a bit, but it was actually on regular PAC TV.
Right. Well, see, I don't have regular TV. I have streaming TV, so I can't
Oh,
watch that.
So Len, did you get captions? Did you have?
Yeah, you get everything, That
Cause I
was,
think I tried.
that was a TV where I told,
Do what?
when I went to Robert, you scolded me.
All right, never mind.
Okay,
any other new business?
no,
Any old business?
no.
Hearing and seeing none, unless there is objection, I'll call the meeting adjourned as of 8:18.